Hey everybody, Carroll County Conservation Naturalist Matt Wietrich here in the home kitchen today because we are talking about being a chef, a backyard bird chef, that is. So we're going to talk about some bird food you can put out and some of the feeders that you might want to use to get that seed out, that food out to your backyard bird friends. It is a fun time of year to be doing this because we have migration going on. So you have a lot of your resident backyard birds plus some new arrivals each day right now. And with this tricky cold weather, this is a good time to see birds coming to bird feeders that may be out looking for bugs otherwise. So we're going to get into some of the seeds, talk about some of the feeders, and lead into another video hopefully here soon. So let's get into our seeds. I've got a variety of things to show you here. Number one, we're going to talk about the most universally accepted food that you could put out, and this is black oil sunflower seeds. So if you're going to only put out one type of food, make it be this one. Most every bird that's going to come to bird feeders will eat this stuff. All right, so this is high in oils that give them good energy. So you've got good protein, high calories. It's a good use of their time eating that food. It's not a junk food. It's high energy. So we'll come back to this one because you're going to get one, put that one out. And you can buy it in 40, 50-pound bags for reasonable prices at most all of your favorite places to get bird seed. So black oil sunflower seed. Okay, this time of year we have an issue for some people with starlings and especially grackles coming to visit their feeders and being sort of bullies, if you will. They come in big numbers as they migrate through, and they're a bigger bird. And so this is safflower. Safflower is one that is not as preferred by grackles. And the word on the street is squirrels don't like it as much either. But we can talk about squirrels another time. If you've ever spent much time feeding birds, squirrels are not your friend. Not that they don't like to eat or it's fun to feed them, but man, they will eat you out of house and home if you let them. So this is one that's not as preferred by squirrels and grackles. So safflower. And you can get a mix of safflower and black oil. Sometimes you'll see that, or you can just make your own mix by buying both of them in bulk. But the goal of not having black oil sunflower seed out is it goes away if you're getting the mix. So I'd recommend this if you're having grackle issues. A side bonus is that cardinals really love this. They like this and black oil sunflower seed the best. And we'll talk about which feeders they prefer to go to as well. Cardinals are always one everybody enjoys having. So safflower seeds. Now speaking of mixes, there's a lot of different mixes out there. Not are all created equally. The cheap mixes you see, not worth any of the money you're going to put into them because they're going to kick out a lot of that millet that's in there and not want much of the rest. All right, so all they really care about in those mixes is either the black oil sunflower seeds or perhaps even the cracked corn that's in there. So some of our native sparrows really like the cracked corn. Some of the native sparrows really like some of the millet as well. And if you're having issues with house sparrows kind of overrunning your feeders, I would stay away from some of the millets and corns, things like that. But this is a pretty decent mix that it's got some of the good stuff in there. So I would recommend a mix like this. And again, stay away from the ones that look very, very white unless you're really trying to attract sparrows and especially house sparrows. But this has got some of the good high energy stuff in it. Okay, and there's lots of different mixes out there. Some of them have peanuts in them. Some of them have fruit pieces and all that stuff. Just depends on how fancy you want to try to get. But that's some of the staples in that mix. All right, so a little bit more specific to finches. Here's a mix that's got sunflower hearts in it that have been chipped up. So the inside parts of the sunflower seed. And then some people would call thistle, the black stuff. It's really not a thistle seed. It's a Niger seed. So N-Y-J-E-R, Niger seed, yes. So this is going to be specific to mostly finches. And honestly, I don't tend to get this stuff very much. It goes bad kind of quickly. It spoils a little bit quicker than most of the other seed does. And then they won't want to eat it. And it's quite a bit more expensive. You can get just the straight Niger. It's still expensive as well. And again, the shelf life out there, if it gets wet at all, it's not very tough. And so putting this out is geared mostly towards American goldfinch, house finches, maybe purple finches. If you're lucky in the winter to get something like common redpolls, things like that, or pine siskins, they really like all this stuff. But all those birds we just said also like black oil sunflower seeds. So you're not gaining a ton by getting this, but if you really want to try and tailor your feeding operation to include or attract finches, this is the nice mix right here, or just getting the straight Niger seed. So let's look at some higher protein foods. Talking about peanuts for starters. You can get peanuts in two different forms. You can get them in the shell, and the most common thing to see come to this is blue jays. They love these, and they often won't eat them right in front of you. They'll carry them away, and they might not even eat them that day. They cache them quite a bit. Blue jays and their cousins, the other jays, will carry things a long, long way away. And scientists have shown that they have probably the record distance for caching. So they'll go a couple miles, maybe up to 5 miles away to cache food. Now think about how far that is for a bird that's this tall, caching things that far away. Yeah, they don't always remember that, and that's one of the ways they help oak trees, for instance. They'll go cache acorns, and then, oops, they forgot about it, and sprouts a new oak tree. So this is a fun thing to put out, and the blue jays love this. It's like candy to them, it seems like. You'll also see some of the nuthatches and the woodpeckers will come, but they'll crack this open, chisel it open to get the goods out. All right. So the goods being something that you'd recognize that you might eat for a snack yourself, peanut pieces. You can find this ground up in slightly smaller pieces as well, but this is a common way to find them. This is not the same stuff that you get in the snack aisle at the grocery store. These would be sometimes called rejects, in the fact that for whatever reason they didn't make it for human consumption. These have not been roasted, they haven't been salted, so they're still fairly healthy for the birds to be eating. Things like woodpeckers, chickadees, nuthatches really like these. Sometimes you'll see things like Carolina wrens, or I've even seen Baltimore orioles eating these. And so those birds I all mentioned are big bug eaters, and they substitute bugs, especially in the wintertime, by eating higher protein nuts like this. Also tree nuts, like walnuts and acorns, things that you would find natively. So this is kind of a substitute of that as well. So these are high protein things that sort of substitute what insects might provide in their daily diets. Okay, so those are some of the seeds. A couple other things we can put out here. Speaking of high protein, would be suet. So here's one example of a suet cake. Suet is extra, it's fat, usually from around the kidney of a cow. You put this in a cage like this. Okay. So you can buy these pre-formed cakes like this. During the wintertime, you can go to the grocery store, the meat counters, and ask for the extra suet they cut off of their meat there. And it's just raw pieces of hardened fat, basically. Don't want to do that in the warmer months. That will go bad very quickly. This type of stuff has been rendered or heated up to get rid of some of the impurities and make it a little bit more warmer weather tolerant. A lot of times they mix it with cornmeal. You can make your own suet. Search that up on Google, homemade suet. I will recommend a recipe known as Zik Food or Zik Suet, named after a very fun and lovely woman named Julie Zickafoos. And she has kind of created this fun recipe for making homemade suet. So give that a search. You can make your own at home. It's kind of fun, and that's good. So that's good for, again, woodpeckers, chickadees, tufted titmouse if you have those in your neighborhood, and nuthatches, things along those lines. Again, Carolina wrens. Right now, as we film this is the time of year where some of the earliest warblers, the pine warblers, will show up, and they tend to come to peanut feeders or suet feeders like that. So speaking of migrants, last thing I'm going to mention here for food, and this is a teeny one, this is a cutie, putting oranges out here. So as we get close to May 1st, I would highly recommend putting out some oranges. Not necessarily the cuties, but this is all we have at our house right now. Grab some oranges, you slice them in half. You can even just set them out on a deck railing. You can buy a specially made feeder for them. You can set them out in a tray feeder, which we'll mention here in a minute. the birds don't care. They see it, they eat it, that's it. To go along with oranges, you can put out grapes. You can put out grape jelly in a little dish. The Baltimore Orioles love that, as well as some of the other fruit-eating birds. I've seen tanagers eating those things as well. And some of our native birds here too, or our year-round birds, I should say, like red-bellied woodpeckers, house finches, American robins, and gray catbirds also. Those things all eat those fruit-based foods. And so if you consider where they overwinter in the rainforest, there's a lot of fruit down that direction. So this is kind of continue on some of those themes for them. Okay, so that's some of our foods. I'll grab a couple feeders here and we can talk about what would go in each feeder. Starting with a platform feeder or a tray feeder. So this is, I've modified mine by adding a little branch in here, which is a good tip. You can always add a branch or two around your bird feeders. It helps attract the birds, gives them a place to perch, feel safe, makes it a little more natural, if you will. And it may seem like a small thing, but it can go a long ways towards catching their eye, especially if it's a new feeder. And so a platform feeder or tray feeder is great for putting those whole peanuts in, or the black oil sunflower seeds. That's what I tend to put in this, the sunflower seeds and the peanut pieces. And safflower would be good in here as well. This is going to be the favorite feeder for cardinals. They don't really like sitting on little perches. They would prefer just to sit here in this or on the edge of this and eat the food from it. So this kind of resembles how they would get food on the ground in a sense, because they're not grabbing it out of something, they're just eating it out of this flat surface. So a tray feeder or a platform feeder. Come in various sizes. This is a quite large one. This was a, I think, birthday gift by my lovely wife. She knows me. You can get small ones that hang, and you can get some that have little legs that can sit on the ground about a foot off the ground. And if you have this on the ground, it will be a favorite spot for squirrels to come sit as well. All right, so let's move on to our next one. We're going to talk about a hopper feeder next. So these are the ones that basically look like a little house. And you can put mostly, I would say, those mixes in there, or the black oil sunflower seeds. Those would be the things I would put in here. Okay, so it's just a general feeder that hangs. You'll get a lot of variety of birds come in to use this. This is a 4-sided one, so it's pretty neat. Usually you just see 2-sided ones. They don't have this end part. So this is a big one that will hold lots of seed. If you don't want to have to fill your feeders very often, get a big feeder like this. It will hold several pounds of food. And then, talking about tube feeders. So these come in a variety of shapes and sizes. The difference between the ones you're going to see are the openings. Now this has small openings, and this is for the finch food. So we're talking about the sunflower chips or the Niger seed. And so this only has a tiny hole for tiny bills to go into to get the tiny food. Okay. So there's very similar tube feeders to this that are going to hold bigger seeds that have bigger openings, and that'll so the openings kind of determine what you would put in there. Okay. I would recommend getting feeders that are easy to take apart, so they're easy to clean. The easier they are to get apart and clean, the more likely you are to do it. Okay. A variation on that theme is this. And so this would hold the Niger seed or the sunflower chips in there as well. And they can cling onto the side of this, much like they would, so thinking they have like goldfinches, much like they would to the side of a drooped over sunflower plant or a thistle plant, and cling and hang upside down even sometimes. So this kind of replicates that feeding mechanism. So again, you can see all the exposure to the conditions. So this gets the seed wet very easily. You can buy a big dome that would hang from this and be sort of a rain guard. You can get those. I would recommend that for a feeder like this if you're going to use it. Okay. This one actually is made of copper, which is a good time to point out buying quality bird feeders. Getting the $6 plastic version is only going to last you a year or two. The sun wreaks havoc on plastic and will make it brittle and not very tough. And the first time you drop it or it blows off your hooks in the wind, it's going to break. So getting, not necessarily copper, but good quality materials and shopping around a little bit for things. And if you spend a few more dollars up front, that's okay. I remember growing up in my parents' house, we had bird feeders, and we were getting halfway cheap feeders usually, and our shed looked like a bird feeder graveyard. It just had pieces and parts of them all over the place that we were keeping in case we needed to piece things together because they would not last all that long. So I would recommend spending a few dollars and getting quality bird feeders. Okay. Lastly, this is what you would put these in. Okay. This is a very popular feeder. These peanut pieces in this feeder is very popular amongst woodpeckers. They can cling to the side of it, get the peanuts out of it this way, peck in there, get them small enough that they want, and get them out. This is a great one. So this is sort of like a fabric cloth, they would call this metal. I'll highly recommend a feeder like this. If you're going to offer something besides just black oil sunflower seeds, I would highly recommend something like this. This is a great alternative for getting those high protein loving birds coming to your yard as well. All right. Now, you can make feeders, and right now we're all stuck inside. We're not going to talk a lot about that right now. There's a lot of great options out there, and it is a fun thing to do, which I do recommend, but I also recommend getting some of these more long-term sustainable feeders. You can make feeders with your kids, but they tend to be temporary. So one of the ideas out there is taking this toilet paper tube. Yes, this was a very valuable resource, that's right. And covering it in peanut butter and then rolling it in seeds or a seed mix and getting them all thick, and then you can run a string through there and hang it up. Okay, same idea you can do with a pine cone. Same idea. So those are things, and there's lots of other fun ideas on the web. I highly recommend doing that in conjunction with some of these other feeders that we've talked about. So we'll do another video here talking about how identifying birds and how to figure out what's in your backyard a little bit as well, what might be coming to these bird feeders. So thanks for tuning in. Stay safe. Have fun. Do a little shopping for bird seed and bird food here if you haven't already. It's a great time. And we'll be back with another backyard birding video here very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.